Thank you so much, Kishorani. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our weekly series on Facebook Live. We're coming from the Institute House in Gitanagri. And as always, we share we're International IFAS, which is a branch of IFAS, which was founded by Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. And so we're really excited tonight because we have a special guest. And of course, you remember our theme, as always, on Wednesdays and Thursday nights is calm, confident, and courageous during this time of what we're calling a crisis. For some people, crisis is always, always going on. And for others, it's never really a crisis. So I want to share a little bit about Parijata. We were hoping both her and Dhruva would be on tonight, but Dhruva got caught with the cows. And so Parijata is here with us, and we're so happy and so honored because she had to take time off from their amazing schedule. So Parijata, she and her husband both have been caretakers of the Eco Village, Gitanagri Farm, for over 10 years. And they both came to take on this amazing, incredible service, which she's going to talk about tonight. From South Africa, they came from South Africa. They were both professionals in South Africa. And in their generous hearts, they decided that they would give up those amazing professional jobs to come to Gitanagri to take care of the farm, which includes many different types of services. And so Parijata, we are so happy to welcome you. She's a disciple of His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. And among the many services, the many hats she wears, we want to ask her, how are you able to stay calm and confident and courageous during these times, Parijata? Please share with us.
Thank you, Majalila. I'm so grateful to be connected tonight with everybody and practicing being calm, practicing being confident, practicing being courageous. I'm not quite there. It's an ongoing endeavor, but I was grateful to be able to reflect on these qualities a lot more intentionally. You know, most of the time we're just being and existing and doing. But this gave me some time to reflect on the qualities in more detail. So I think everyone, to some extent, has always been in a situation where it calls for confidence or courage most times. And I was reflecting on times when I was able to be that, but I was also reflecting on times when I was not able to be that. And I was thinking, well, what was happening with me at those times? And I was thinking about how when I was not calm, which is, generally a situation of being free of nervousness or being, free of any strong emotion, usually anger, right? That's what usually happens. Then I was thinking, if I'm not that, I might be agitated, a little perturbed, discomposed. And I was thinking the same about confident. Confident is about being having that self-assurance, especially self-confidence, but confidence in one's own abilities and knowledge and, strengths. And when I'm not like that, I find myself filled with doubt, filled with skepticism, filled with elements of distrust, and of course, uncertainty. And so then I was thinking of courage and how, we understand courage to be not to be deterred when there's danger or when there's pain. And that's a big one, especially physical pain, for example, also emotional pain. And what really sticks out for me around courage is also the ability to act on our beliefs despite disapproval. Now, acceptance ranks high up in my kind of needs list, and I think for most of us too. So having that ability to continue to act on my belief despite the potential of being disapproved is a big one for me too. And so when I'm not that way, then I find I'm very fearful. And I had this opportunity to reflect on this with the conversations, in the team now, is what happens when we are calm? What happens with physiologically, and what happens with hormones? There's all these nice feel-good hormones released, and that's nice. But it's also about managing energy and managing emotions. And I can think of numerous examples where I've been in situations that if I were not so aware of my energy, my emotion, then I would go into a kind of maybe an anxiety-filled state. And that could be anything around my current services, whether it's from, a car falling ill to, someone, like a potential conflict with another person because I'm not able to, frame my thoughts and needs and feelings appropriately. So, those kind of experiences are there constantly. And then I was thinking of knowledge too. Of confidence. I was thinking, what gives me confidence? And knowledge works for me. I find that the more I equip myself, not just information, because information has a kind of an artificial element to it, a little bit of superficial to it, because it changes too, even with the current pandemic we're facing. There's so many different schools of thought, and who's to say what is what, and you have to navigate. And but knowledge has wisdom attached to it, has something absolute about it, something that's very authentic about it. And so I feel equipping myself with knowledge is very useful to develop confidence. And then, of course, for me, courage comes down to seeking connection with my own needs and values, and seeking connection with others' needs and values. So I can have opportunity to eliminate that fear, that space in the spectrum that fear presents itself. And it talks a lot to conviction and integrity. I remember Dr. Teta Swami often would talk about integrity and the situation that we find currently about situational ethics. They're kind of like too situational. Something's ethical in this set of circumstances, but not in others. And so seeking to be principle-centered and having that integrity, or trying to build that, it takes a lot of work, and trying to stay strong in conviction to be able to develop such courage. And then I was thinking a little bit more deeply on these three qualities, and seeing what happens when I'm agitated, when I'm not calm and I'm not able to manage my energy and emotions. The agitation levels are there. I feel an inner tension, some restlessness is there. And it takes a lot of self-awareness and admittance and acknowledgement. I feel the same way about when I'm not able to be confident and when there are doubts there. And when I try to reflect on why, I kind of come to some very common themes that most of us go through too, as we reflect on that. Usually past experiences create a lot of doubt in our hearts and in our consciousness, something about our childhood upbringing, something around a big one, comparing ourselves to others creates a lot of issues around doubt and lower confidence, especially again, how society is organized, mainstream society is organized to be able to, stimulate us to want this or to be that, rather than just the best version of ourselves. We want to be something or someone else. So this comparison to others is something that can erode confidence. And of course, a big one for me is fear of failure, personally, and that's why I kind of tend to do things that I enjoy, but then I realize it's not that I'm enjoying them. Actually, I tend to do things that I feel safe in. I tend to do things that I know I'll be good at, so I don't have to face my own failure or potential inadequacy in that situation. And for the longest time, I got away with that until I think I moved here because I was totally ripped out of my comfort zone. I'm dealing with large animals in a farm space and, natural resources and, dirt in my fingernails and, and a community to, integrate into. Fortunately, there was a lot of support. So, it kind of made the transition very, very smooth. But that's a big one for me too. When it comes to thinking of how I can build more courage and what holds me back, usually fear, but I always try to think, well, what am I fearful of, And I find that often it's usually, I think more often than not in my case, my fears are imagined rather than real. I think a lot of us face that from time to time. And And it can be on various levels: physical, emotional, psychological. And the one thing I was reading and understanding about is that often most persons in social science and psychology talk about how fear is often learned based on our past experience. And that's consoling for me, because then I know I can unlearn it. Although in its essence and in its instinctive form, it's usually meant to be a protective measure. You know, when you're fearful of something dangerous, you won't go there to protect yourself, to be able to survive. So yeah, thinking about how to be these things, how to be calm, I think takes a lot of practice, takes a lot of training the mind, training the body and the breath, something that I've neglected only up until the last 2 or 3 years. I find myself giving more attention to that and being more intentional. And I have a lot of support to do that. More capacity in the team, you know, being kind of very thinly spread for the longest time, being able to give support to that. I think prayer is exceptionally significant in trying to remain and keep a calm approach. So managing energy, emotion, and then taking some kind of approach to approaching the Supreme Self, being very aware of self and then approaching the Supreme Self. I'm not very good at formulating prayer. So I usually try to repeat some of the prayers that have been offered by many of our spiritual mentors. And they're extremely empowering and deeply moving, and they really penetrate at least my heart. And so taking shelter of that is extremely transformative. Again, self-care was not very high on my list. So, but when I kind of understand that my functionality is compromised over years, I had to act very quickly to be able to address that. And so what helps me in terms of when I don't feel relaxed and calm is, and something, you know, different mentors and peers tell us about, visualization is very consoling to me. So for example, even today for me to speak, I was very nervous. And so I would visualize myself, you know, having smiling, encouraging faces like all of you, and being able to speak comfortably and to have that connection. And that creates a lot of just physiologically, my reactions are different. My breathing is different. My expressions are different. My thoughts are different. And I just love that when I can, not all the time, and access the calmness that's within, then there's so much perspective, so much clarity and balance. And again, an opportunity to deepen connections, because that's what we are all hankering for. I know myself, understanding that interconnectedness between me, the self, Supreme Self, other persons, and especially in a farm context, other species of life, you know, the cows, the little naughty goat that's always in trouble, having, you know, fencing wire on her horn and needing, you know, limping the next day, and, you know, just always in trouble, or the wildlife, or the natural resources, the soil, the forests, the water. So, you know, having all those dependencies helps me understand the interconnectedness and how important it is for all of that to be in balance, in harmony, as a very whole and functional ecosystem. And then on confidence, a big thing that kind of made some transition points, but I think beneficial for all of us to build, is respect, self-respect and respect for others. Often it's said you can't give what you don't have. You know, you can't pour from an empty cup. And sometimes in certain communities or cultures, in my immaturity in certain contexts, I may have misunderstood some of the wisdom cultures in terms of what it means to be humble, or what it means to be respectful, because we tend to neglect respect to the self, and then, you know, have trouble in relationships. So that was a big one to overcome. And I can see how having to face obstacles, just facing them, not running away from them, not hiding or masking them or smoke screening them, creates a lot more confidence. It's quite liberating to be able to overcome obstacles, to overcome things that usually put us in a state of fear or inaction, or kind of, yeah, just take us a little bit out of our comfort. And then acknowledging and appreciating accomplishments. Often, again, in my immaturity and understanding, what it means to just say thank you is very hard if someone were to encourage me. But then I am able to now say thank you, knowing that these qualities are coming from a place and a source that is bigger than me. So as I see opportunities to open myself up to different opportunities, that understanding of the mercy, the reciprocation that comes with any sincere endeavor, I hold that very close, knowing that while I am receiving encouragement, that the credit is due to something bigger and broader than me, especially in a communal setting, in community. I love that there's so many ways to make a difference, but do that in a very impactful way as a collective, and so that joy and that credibility is spread and everyone does their part. And it's easier also on on the lower tendencies like the false ego and others when you're in a team, to be able to have those expressions. And then on courage is a big one, and I think a lot of us, I think it's a very appropriate time right now to be able to tap and access that a lot more within ourselves. Just admitting our fears. I mean, I'm afraid of death because the virus is so close. I'm afraid of death. How to process that. I'm afraid of losing someone who's very dear to me, like an elderly, my 89-year-old dad. If you were to be exposed, what are the fears that come with that? Or, whatever else, just admitting that. Before, I'd like to keep a strong front and it doesn't affect me, and a lot of logic and rational thinking, rather than just accepting that there's this element of life which is softer and which will touch the heart in different ways, especially my own. And that talks a lot to embracing vulnerability, how to be that and still be strong, and how to be okay with being vulnerable. And I'm sure you can give us a lot of tips on that too, in terms of helping us access that. But that's something many of us struggle with. I certainly do. And then, of course, practical measures, like reducing the stressors in the environment, and kind of taking practical steps to be able to deal with whatever risks there might be there that I am contemplating that are preventing me from being courageous, from demonstrating courage in my choices. And I find that a lot of the time, it requires wisdom. And then again, I take to mentors and the wisdom that comes through in that knowledge, in that sharing. And and I find that the best thing about courage, once demonstrated, is there's so much growth. It's just transformation. It's just it's totally liberating. And so those are kind of some of my thoughts on that. For me, I was thinking that if we were to ever access any of these qualities on a lasting level, there has to be this connection between me, the self, and the supreme self, me, the self, and other selves, whatever species of life. Otherwise, they will carry us through a point, but it will not be lasting, will not be sustainable. Another point that comes to my consciousness is underpinning all of this is certainly this quality that is innate in all of us, that of compassion. It's very hard to be calm if I cannot, and courageous and confident if I cannot give myself compassion and give that to others. That softness of heart that is there, that accesses these beautiful qualities that give purpose to life, that make life so rich and make everything so transformative and growth that comes with this endeavor. And and I'm grateful because in communities, in spiritual communities, devotional communities, in wisdom cultures, this is very much emphasized and brought through and interwoven in our lifestyle. And that makes it a lot easier to be able to embrace and, have that support system to access. So yes, these are some of my thoughts. And yeah, I can talk a little more on something that's close to me on courage, but I'd like to, see if there's anything else you'd like me to share.
Sure. Usually we ask a few questions and just to have like I love the theme of interconnectedness. Something we talk a lot about in terms of when we bring these different series to the public, we're always thinking, how can we interact? How can we interconnect with others? And something I think about with you, Parijata, is that you spoke about energies, and I know that your day is like full. You start your day like somewhere between 5 in the morning, 4:35. By 6 you're like fully busy doing services, and normally I know your day doesn't end until at least 9, 10 o'clock at night. 9. I know for sure. And there's a variety of different ways that you are engaged. And I'm just wondering how much of your being involved, constantly involved, how much of that helps you to be calm and confident and courageous? I'm just curious about that because you're busy.
Right, and that's where I find I need to tap into being intentional. When I first moved here, I said, where am I? When I made a choice. And then I realized I'm part of an intentional community. And the moment I walked in, that was my main observation, that everyone lived with intention in this community. And that was given to us by our mentors, by Bhakti Tirtha Swami and so many other mentors. And so for me, that creates a moment-to-moment opportunity in all that busyness to be able to live with intent. And I find that this opportunity, I can speak of, just time management and facilitating different minds and thoughts and personalities in our diverse team, how remaining courageous to be able to know that if a different or diverse perspective is expressed, how the relationship and the trust levels are still intact. To know that I can be not always confident in front of them because I feel supported. There are times when I may not feel that, so I can be more authentic. I also can think of times when the situation was really serious. It called for panic. It called for action in whatever way. There might have been a crisis in the field or at the barn or with a person, or someone's having a bit of a meltdown. It's one can easily go into some sort of strong emotion, very strong emotion. All the while I realized, one, that due to my service and my responsibility, I like to take very seriously the ability or the awareness, maybe it's not so much ability, but the awareness to give support rather than to a higher cause and to the collective, rather than to give into my own knee-jerk reactions to situations. And for me, I'm always contemplative of that. So for example, with the coronavirus situation, we had to make decisions on what we're doing at the farm, what guidelines we will follow. Is it a lockdown? Is it a partial lockdown? A managed risk approach? And we had principles to consider and situations to consider. And one of our mentors said, please make sure you manage the biology and the psychology of this, because both needed to be taken care of. And in a team of 21 persons on site right now, the psychology was from extreme concern bordering on some paranoia to extreme, disconnection from the situation and everything in between. And we spent many hours working through our understanding and finding some kind of balance. And that took a lot of calm, because I'm sitting with my own perspective. I'm sitting with 20 other perspectives. It took confidence. I had to equip myself with knowledge, with information, with data, I had to kind of, really get into analyzing the different trends and whatever's happening with this virus to be able to, be.
Parijata, check your sound. Check your sound.
Okay, is this any better?
Yep. Here. Okay, go ahead.
Yep. So having that, equipping myself with information, but deeper knowledge, and putting heart into it, understanding that there is a psychological reaction to the situation. And of course, having the courage to present perspectives that not everybody aligned to, but still falling back on the strength of the relationship that is built moment to moment in the deposits we make in that relationship account. And so I think everyone, all of us in our various respective situations have opportunities to be this in our jobs, in our families, in our communities. And I think that we all have this capability. For me, it takes a lot more thought because I used to be a lot more passionate and a little like neglectful, just kind of just steamrolling ahead. And since moving to the farm, I've learned to slow down, and I've learned to be more nurturing rather than just more driven. It doesn't mean that I don't have deadlines to meet right now, and it's a high performance culture, but my approach is very different because of the support and the learnings and the different personalities and elements of the environment that I take as teachers. I find that if I tap into that humility that exists within me to be able to do that, I'm a lot more effective in my role in my service. And I feel that connection on a greater level with those around me, and they too feel that connection. And collectively, our offering is a lot more, substantial, of impact, joyful and fulfilling. So, yeah.
So yeah, this is a time our team kind of jumps in, and Leela, I don't know, you have some question, or this is one of our team members, and Anna is also here, our team, and from our team, and also Kishore Rani. So all of us now, we kind of jump in and just ask one or two questions for our audience. Leela, you have something for Parijata?
Thank you so much. That was, there's a lot of good things that I heard there that I will borrow for when I'm not feeling confident. There's a big part of self-inquiry that you're bringing to it, where this understanding of what it feels like to be calm and confident and courageous, and also what it feels like and what's happening for you when you don't feel that. So having that understanding of what it is for you, that clarity, I really appreciated that. I think sometimes, at least for me, I have no idea what's going on with me unless I stop and I say, okay, what is going on? And so I really appreciated that. My burning question is, you mentioned the working with the animals, and I wonder if you've learned any lessons from them as far as being calm, confident, and courageous.
Thank you, Leela. Most certainly. Absolutely. I think they're one of the biggest influences in any growth that takes place in this project, in this community. They're just very gentle, but they have an amazing approach to dealing with humans. So immediately I'm thinking of a simple thing in terms of time management. We milk the cows twice a day, 365 days a year, and what should go wrong in a streamlined process like that? But I tell you, it's so interesting because nothing really goes wrong, but things are very different, and they somehow synchronize with whatever's going on for any of us that are involved with them. It's somehow there's this intuitive relationship between them and their servants. So if you need time to slow down, it's time to slow down because maybe we've just been too rushed. The cows are that instrument of learning to be able to then slow us down. So I'm thinking I need to get from here to there to there to there, but not this morning because they decide to wander off or graze a lot longer, and they're just too cute to scold. You can't rush them, and they're too big and heavy to move. So that's, that's just what they do. The same thing is, even if there's some sadness, for example, that I may be feeling, I was grieving lately a lot, and I think I still am. And they're very sensitive to that emotion. And so just being very close to them, especially touch, tactile, just a lot of touch and exchange. Cows are known to have a very slow heart rate. And when humans come very close to them, has a very soothing, calming effect on them. And that's part of, animal therapy and bovine therapy. And you find that with horses too, equine therapy. And so, they can sense that. Of course, they sense joy, they're more playful. If they sense that there's time for you to, maybe develop a lot more patience because you're too self-absorbed, they'll give you reason to be able to be more selfless. So certainly, yes.
Thank you so much. I really can only imagine how amazing that is. Thank you.
And Anna, is Anna on with us tonight? I know she's on. Anna, would you want to ask any questions from Parijata?
Thank you so much, Parijata Mataji, for giving this talk today. I feel jealous that I'm not there with you in the farm and taking that learning lessons from those cows. I love the animals so much. And gosh, your talk was so full of so many moments where we could go deeper, because you kind of like so fast went through so much stuff and covered so much of your own experiences, like vast, number of years, like 20 minutes. So maybe one question that I'm thinking could be useful to other women as well, is that you mentioned that before you were kind of like neglecting that area, and recently you started taking care of your body more than before. So maybe I'm thinking, if you're saying you're living in the farm, but maybe it could be relevant to other devotees, especially the beginner ladies who just start and who just learn that we are not this body and going to all this routine about just completely neglecting that part. And so now we have a quarantine, so we have a little extra time. And I also know that there are some women who consider spending time for themselves, like taking care of the body or like doing something for them, as like a waste. It's like a waste of time, like I'm killing time. So maybe you could answer that, like how that works for you. What are the benefits and what exactly do you do that you found helpful to take care of that?
Sure. Thank you, Anna. And the cows do miss you too, because you always spend a lot of time with them. Yes, I think it's very important for us ladies to be able to give that self-care and time. I mean, off the bat, yes, we understand our real identity. And we also understand that true beauty comes from our qualities, that we are the true ornaments of a person, are the qualities that they are attempting to develop. The kindness, the compassion, the ability to be able to be benevolent, to be able to be generous, to be able to be helpful and kind and loving. And so that's the real quality that we're working on. And I find that for those of us adult ladies, 20s, 30s and onwards, we already have some work cut out for us, because perhaps the levels of awareness we have now were not available and were not present, decades ago. And so already to take some time to reflect in terms of what is my internal compass like? What is my spiritual compass? Where do I want to be? What would I like to be? Who would I like to be? Am I satisfied with who I am right now? What do I mean for others? And to kind of just take stock of that. And based on the answers that come from that, we'd be able to chart out a really good plan for ourselves. And we'd go to different sources to be able to come up with different strategies to be able to meet those needs that we will see that will surface through that. I encourage all women, and I certainly do that myself, just taking care of our physical bodies, just good health good nutrition, and being well groomed and being attractive and looking great. Yes, that is there. We're doing that with the understanding that that is not the end of our identity. Our real identity is what lies beneath that exterior. What are the qualities, and what is the character, and what are the attributes? And so I think it takes some deep thought and reflection, and this is a great time to do that. But it also takes courage to do this, because for the longest time, I know I myself, kind of smoke screened it by just being busy. And then when you're not busy, then you kind of have to face some situations, and then you say, oh, I'd rather be busy again because I don't want to deal with that. And so it's very easy in the cities to do that. In these environments, we're kind of stripped of that, and so it kind of stays us back a little bit more, kind of in a magnified, amplified way. So I really encourage ladies to take the time to be able to go within, go deeper, be able to ask yourselves these questions and chart out a really great plan to take care, and find the courage. And whatever we discover within ourselves, we do have the tools within ourselves and available among us with great mentors, to be able to address whatever comes up, to be able to find ways to, if we find they hold us back, to release ourselves of them. If we find that they are very nourishing, then how can I organize my life to have more of that? I think all of us have organizational and planning skills. We run households, and we run, different departments and teams, even, systems and scopes of work. We scrum masters and all sorts of things in different environments. But somehow we don't take that to ourselves. And I think bring that to ourselves to be able to nourish ourselves that way.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Do we have a little more time? I wanted to read something that I read in Bhakti Tirtha Swami's leadership book about courage that stood out for me and resonated. Can I read two short excerpts?
It's like about 5 minutes? It's about 5 minutes?
Yeah, one paragraph.
Okay, all right, sure.
So it's at the end, actually, and he says, and I'm saying this in the context of that we are attempting to access calmness, confidence, courage, and also thinking of how we're leaders in different ways. We don't have to have positions to be leaders. We're leaders in our own lives, even just talking to Anna's last question and to Leela's also. And so he says, and so, dear leader, this book concludes where it began, with an acknowledgement of the significance and power of love. Within the pages of this book, you have been instructed by a loving, unseen coalition. We care for you, and we have grown to love you even more from this association. We have offered you simple yet profound advice for your own survival, well-being, and success. The greatest problem facing the world is a crisis in leadership. Proper, thoughtful, loving leadership from a metaphysical perspective can inaugurate a new era for humankind, truly an age of higher consciousness. Beloved, will you help provide leadership for an age of higher consciousness? I will just end with something inspiring from Bhakti Tirtha Swami.
Wow, so nice. And certainly Anna and Kishori and Leela, they're all definitely providing, something for higher consciousness by making these sessions available for people all over the world. And we're so very grateful to them. Kishori, would you like to share anything before we thank Parijata for giving us such a intensive and innovative, creative, and most importantly, knowledgeable presentation?
Just would like to say thank you very much. I really appreciate that I have you in my life, and you're a really beautiful person and a woman because of, not only because you're taking care of yourself, but because you have so amazing qualities, and like this, everybody who is around you can see and appreciate. I'm really grateful to you. Thank you.
Hari, So usually we close out with Leela just saying a few words, and we thank you, Parijata, so much for coming and being with us, and we're looking forward to having you again. And Leela, she is our team member that we love to hear from her at the end of our sessions. Leela?
Thank you. I had a note of something I wanted to share about what you shared, but I lost it. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciated so many things. Like Anna said, there was so many points where we can go deeper into them. So I really, really hope that you come back and talk to us again. Really appreciated it.
Thank you.
Thank
I feel
you.
very enriched and nourished by connecting with all of you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing. We're deeply grateful. Haribo, Hare Krishna.